Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Conquer everything and compromise nothing. This show brings you real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. If you have never liked small talk and have been on a personal growth journey for a long time, stay tuned as Martine and her guests share empowering stories. Now is the time to own your past and look toward your future with hope. Believe in your dreams, and all that you want to achieve is possible. Transformation Coach Martine helps you accept and love you for you. It's time to listen to your heart and tap into your unlimited potential. You have the answers you need inside. Sometimes you just need the right guide to help allow transformation to happen. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome to Transformation with Martine podcast, and I am one of your guest hosts, Alysia Lyons.
And I'm the other one, Andee Scarantino. Martine has been so kind to allow us to jump in and have a conversation on her show today. So I'm excited to be here, Alysia. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited too. My favorite kind of podcasts are interviews / conversational podcasts. And so I don't do it very often on my own. So let's have a great conversation.
Absolutely.
So I know we were going to talk about a pen and a Snickers bar. So why don't you tell me about a pen?
So what Alysia and I were talking about, what we were going to discuss on this podcast, I brought up a concept, and the title, we decided on You Create Your Reality, but this is not from an angle of law of attraction or some of those things, but rather this is a concept about our inner reality. And so, yes, we are going to talk about a pen. So I started studying Dharma and Buddhism this year. You don't need to know anything about Buddhism to hear about this example. And if you're audio only, I'm just going to tell you that I'm holding up what is a pen. This is a Bic ballpoint clicky pen, but all you need to know is it's a pen. And Alysia, what do you see now that I'm holding this here?
I see a pen that is white and green with some lettering on it.
So this is a pen. Now, we can reasonably agree. I see a pen. Alysia sees a pen. If one of your dogs, Alysia, Indian or Audi, saw this, what would they see?
100% something to chew on, like a stick or a toy or my couch or... But they don't know what a pen is. They're not writing with a pen. They see something to chew on.
Chew toy. That's generally the consensus is dog will see chew toy and human will see pen. Now, this is where it gets a little bit heavier, but I'm going to take it through stages, and then we're ultimately going to be having a conversation about personal development and people. But the idea of the pen is that the meaning of the pen and what the pen is not within the object itself, but rather is projected from us. Human sees pen, dog sees chew toy. Dog does not see something to write with. Dog sees chew toy. Human sees pen. Now, that seems pretty simple, I'm sure, as I talk about it and I'm saying these words. But I did this example for my women's coaching community day one, and I just talked about the pen, and we all went through the idea of the pen, and then I held up a Snickers bar to a room full of women, and every woman in that room had a different experience of what this is. Some of the women that had some history with diet culture and things like that, because we have been oppressed by diet culture and the patriarchy and been told our bodies aren't good enough since forever. Some of that came through. I am a distance runner. I run marathons. For me, after an 18-mile run, this is bliss this is bliss. Like some people, but it was a different experience for every person. The meaning of the Snickers bar was projected from each person's mind. And even though it's just the two of us here in this room, we are it was interesting to see all of them see each other seeing something different. So we are going to talk about, or Alysia and I discussed, we had our own conversation, and now we're going to have the conversation here about when it comes to people, the same thing is happening. When it comes to experiences and situations in your life, the same thing is happening. The meaning is internal. It's not external. Those things don't hold meaning on their own any more than a pen does, any more than a Snickers bar does. And so I wanted to give that example to kick us off and turn it back over to you, because I know you had a relevant situation or a situation you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, well, first I want to say that to me, I'm looking at the Snickers bar, and there's an old version of me that looks at a Snickers bar and thinks, delicious, like I want one right now. And there's a current version of me that's like, well, I'm not, like, I'm purposefully not eating processed sugar and things that, because of the fact that, you know, I heard that sugar or cancer can't live without sugar. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to create that in my body, and so I'm not going to partake in sugar anymore to the best of my ability. And you look like you have something to say about that, which I'm
Nope. Nope. just listening.
So my dad passed away a year ago in April from cancer, and I just made the pretty strong connection that basically sugar killed my dad. And so there are still pieces of me that I'm like, I can smell that Snickers bar, I can taste that Snickers bar, and I don't want anything to do with it. I also think of Betty White getting tackled by did you see that Betty White commercial, a Snickers commercial?
I did, yes.
So good.
What, Alysia, how, like, I hold this up and like just layers and layers and layers and layers of your life are now just here with us. And that is such and that's happening constantly with everything, with everyone. And the scenario of, like, you see a person or a thing or an idea, and all of that meaning is internal, like everything. And of course, this stemmed from a Buddhist concept, but this correlates with so much of what we talk about in personal development, about how it comes from you, your triggers come from you. I mean, everything is here. And if you're listening to audio, I'm touching my body, like it's internal, right?
Most of it comes from here. I'm touching my head.
Well, it depends. I mean, like, where do you live in your body, right? Like, it could,
right?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Because I'm, the thing that comes to my mind is, honestly, like I knew that it's all internal, but I think you were the one that really drove that point home for me, where when I'm feeling triggered by someone, it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with me and my thoughts, and it's a reflection. We talk about it's the mirror, that you are a mirror for my own thoughts. Everything that you do, if it triggers me, if it makes me happy, it's all like, it's all coming from me. You are you, and I'm reacting to you. Positively or negatively. I happen to like you a lot, so a lot of the things that you do, I respond positively to. And someone else who might not know you, might not, the way that I do, or the way that I experience you, they might experience you differently.
Right. Yeah, it's a huge thing that it's all. You look like you had more to say. I'm sorry. Was that?
No, I was complete in that thought, and then I thought of something, but go ahead.
I was just, it's the reverse is true as well. Like, and I find the more I see of myself, the more I can see others, and the more others can see themselves with me. And it gets to be really deep, and it gets to be really, because at times, you'll have an experience with someone and you'll see such extreme beauty in it. And I spoke about this recently with my group about how I had an experience and I just saw this extreme beauty in this other person, like extreme beauty. And it's so hard to say, oh, that's me too. Because we're constantly told in society, oh, you don't self-aggrandize like that. But how can you see it? So how can you see both good, whatever we deem as good, or whatever we deem as not? Like all of those experiences are your capacity to love. If you can't hold the love, you're certainly not going to see the love in that other human.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a experience just the other day where I was talking with someone about she wanted to help me in promoting my podcast, and I'm like, well, do I have to pay you? Because I can do it, but anyway. And she said, well, actually, I'd love to barter like coaching for helping you out. And I was like, well, I'm all about the barter system. It's my favorite thing on the planet. And so, yeah. And I said, and I'm a phenomenal coach. And I wrote it and I was like, that feels really weird to write it and to say it, air quotes, out loud. I believe it, but it feels weird to say it out loud. And it was just a noticing. Like, I didn't have any judgment about the weirdness of the feeling. It was just, I mean, I guess weird is a judgment, but I just noticed that it's like, oh, that produces something in my body that I'm labeling as weird.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And your interpretation of all of that. I mean, all of those experiences. Yeah, it's the pen, right? It's the pen. I'll tell I don't know if we have time before the break for a quick story, but I went through this with my former teacher where I felt and saw and discovered so much within him. So much. I mean, it was, I fell in love. Like I was just definitely just in love. And it wasn't like romantic love, but I was just in love. And everything that he said just ignited so much in me until I heard a Buddhist teacher just recently say, if you don't have it in you to have those experiences, you won't have them. So that was you as well. Like that was you. You had a readiness. That man could have said those same words to someone else and they wouldn't have had that experience.
Yeah. That's so interesting because I annoy the snot out of people because they'll tell me something and I'll be like, yeah, okay, cool. And then I'll hear it from someone else at a later time and I'll come back to the original person and be like, oh my gosh, I just heard the most amazing thing. And they're like, yeah, I said that 6 months ago. And I'm like, really? Like I don't even have any awareness of them saying it in the past. And like you said, and so now I can tell, well, it's because I didn't have it in me at that point. And I've always used this phrase of when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah. And Lao Tzu will go on to say, when the student is truly ready, the teacher disappears.
Whoa. Yeah. Tell that, like, we'll have to expand on that a little bit because that really is kind of the evolution of what I'm going through right now, where I've been in the student role in our coaching community for a long time, and this last 5-day live event, I heard more times about what a leader I am than I've heard my entire life. And it was a really cool experience.
It's so beautiful.
We'll have to elaborate more on that after the
break.
Yeah.
We are back. We are discussing, so far we've been discussing the idea of creating your reality, in that your reality is created internally. So this is a little bit different than law of attraction, emotions draw things to you. Obviously, those things are true as well, but this is more about the concept that everything is empty of meaning, and the meaning comes from us. So Alysia and I, before the break, we got into the quote about when the student is ready, the teacher appears, as I was talking about my former teacher and how much meaning was internal. And then we talked about when the student is ready, the teacher disappears. And you were talking about your shift from student to leadership. And I'm excited for the second part of that conversation. This is going to be great.
Yeah, it really started actually 6 months ago when I was put into a position in this company. And so because of the position that I was put in, I made quite a lot of assumptions about what that meant for me, and so I kind of thought that I would be doing all of the sales for the company. And I wasn't making a lot of assumptions, to be honest, because I got brought into this sales conversation and this is the new product we're coming out with. And then an hour after that call, I was told, actually, it makes more sense for the other person who used to have your position to do it now. And it was kind of like this moment of, well, I'm going to give you this lollipop that you really, really want, that you're really excited to have, and then just kidding, you can't have it. And I'm laughing about it now because it's funny now, but in the moment, it just pissed me off so much. And I don't remember, was I talking to you? Did I talk to you at the time?
We had a call. Yeah, we talked. Yeah. I remember that.
Because I know that I did talk to you. I just don't know if it was like in the moment, in my anger, that I was talking to you. And I spent a week just stewing. Like it would come and go. I would coach myself through it. And then it would come back, and I ultimately decided that I needed to be a leader. I needed to stop being the perpetual student in this community and start stepping up into my leadership. And this same teacher in a different course said that leaders make decisions. And one thing that was annoying in my romantic partnership is that I always deferred decisions to him. And we have had many, many conversations about, like, could you please just make a decision? Because he's a boss in his role in his company. And so you get kind of decision fatigue, right? So during the 6 months, I've actively been trying to make more decisions. I asked other people, like, what is your definition of a good leader? And so I'm collecting all of this information, like, what does it mean for me to be a leader? And so here we are 6 months later. We just got back from this live 5-day training, and what was it, day 2, you sent me a text message and said, I don't remember you from the first time you went to this 5-day program.
I didn't remember her. No. And I said how and of course, in my experience is me. So I'm seeing you, but I'm seeing you. Like, you're stepping it the fuck up. Like, oh, am I allowed to curse on Transformation Talk Radio? Sorry about that. I won't do it again. Stepping it the F up, like, and it was beautiful. Yeah, it was a whole different experience, at least from my end, to see you. and the way that I was seeing you.
Yeah. And it was interesting to me too, because you were the first person to say it, but then probably half a dozen other people said it independently of one another. And they were reaching out to me and they were asking me questions and they were, joking behind the scenes with me and which I love all of that. Like that's the stuff that fills my cup, is to have having people see me this way. I didn't realize it until experiencing it, but it's something that really does light me up. And the same exact trigger happened, where this time we didn't have the conversation before the program of you're going to be selling it and just kidding, now you're not. But I asked because I knew that I didn't want to be pulled out of the room again that same way like I was last time, because I was really not present that whole program, and because I was so in my head about it. And so Thursday morning I got a text message saying that this person was going to do it and not me. And so I had my irritation, and then the beautiful thing for me was, inside my irritation, I thought, hold on, I'm making it mean that he doesn't trust me. And he didn't say that. And if you're not watching the video, Andee held up a pen. And I was making it mean that he didn't trust me with the sales of this program. And I didn't even talk to him. It was through the other person who was going to be doing it. She said, I'm going to do the program. I'm going to do the sales. I'm going to do the next step calls. And my thought was like, that he didn't trust me to do it. And I was in my anger when I sent her the text message, and I said, I'm a little irritated by this decision. Can you please explain to me why that's the decision that was made?
Yeah.
And like, just that. Oh, I was so proud of myself.
And it's beautiful because what you saw was that it isn't that. Like, that's not real. And yet it was real for you, like in that what was happening. I mean, as I'm holding up this pen, for anyone that might just be listening to audio, the meaning is projected. So obviously Alysia has awareness, like you have awareness. And the awareness is seeing and noticing the trigger, and then noticing it again, and then noticing it again, and then noticing, so you can find the meaning making. Otherwise, it's just, that dude don't trust me. And it's like, well, that's not true. That's not the truth. But until we can notice and we get into these places, I'm saying we in terms of humans, and that, I mean, I'm meaning make all the time. Brief story. I just took a flight. I'm not I don't love flying. I don't mind flying. I don't love takeoff. So of course we have a mechanical issue right before takeoff, and I'm sitting on the plane and I called the person I'm coming to see, and I'm like, oh, why is this happening to me? He said, what's happening to you? And I looked around the plane and nobody gives a flying hoot. Like, the meaning of it is made in my mind. No one gave a hoot. There was a lady with takeout eating in the row. She's just sitting there eating, doesn't even care. And of course, like, that's a small example, but when you're thinking of something larger, like someone doesn't trust me, then all of a sudden you have an insight into your own experience, and that can go deep. Like, that can be beautiful, because then you can start to examine why the hell you started telling that story in the first place. Like, who would have just pulled that out of there? Like, I could have had the same set of experiences with the same people, and I could have made it mean that person thinks I'm obnoxious, like, or, well, why would I tell that story? Am I obnoxious? I just cursed on Transformation Talk Radio. I mean, maybe,
Right. And I think even the more powerful thing that I did was I asked myself, where do I not trust me?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we're talking about. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there is no Sean other than in my mind, right?
Right.
Ooh, just said his
He
name.
doesn't exist. He doesn't, but he doesn't exist. Like, that's the thing. Like, and it doesn't really even matter. It could be any fictitious person. Like, because ultimately this goes very well with our discussion, in that it's a very big concept. Some people will argue it. I've seen people pick it apart to shreds. They'll start going back to childhood. They'll do whatever they want to do because it's hard for a lot of people to hear. So the people that really hear us saying this are people that will understand it already, but there just are no other people. And I just said the people that hear, but there are no other people. You're only experiencing your own experience. So yes, there is a person that you had that experience with. Yes, he exists. Yes, he is a human body going through this earth. But your experience is completely 100% internal. It could have been any other person filling those shoes. If it wasn't him, it'd be somebody else.
Yeah.
Because your experience is to examine your relationship with trust.
Mm-hmm. And when I answered the question, where do I not trust myself? The answer was as a leader. And so this was it. I mean, we just came full circle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I felt energy there. Like, whoa.
Right. Yeah.
This is live.
It's live, right? And what I thought was beautiful about what you did, because you and I had this discussion about what you were going to do during this 5-day program, was you were going to write down all of your judgments about other people.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I didn't write them down, I was kind of doing a self-check of like, where am I judging? And what is that meaning? And that's why I asked myself, where do I not trust myself? Because there was a judgment of him not trusting me. And people could argue that the explanation that he gave was that he doesn't trust me yet in that role, because these next step calls are very important to the company. And that's great. But it doesn't matter to me if he trusts me, because now my relationship to like, I have to examine my relationship to trust, and what does it mean to not trust myself as a leader? And like, his decision is his decision. It's a business decision, and I completely understand the business decision. And it's not about that. It's about me. It's about, and as a Leo, I freaking love that everything's about me.
Oh, I dated a Leo. He won't watch this but he'll put a like on it. But I dated a Leo for many years of my life. He is my best friend. And I'll tell you, do you celebrate the whole month of your birthday? Because he does.
I celebrate, my birthday is the 4th of August. So I start celebrating July 4th, because that's 1 month until my birthday. Because once the birthday happens, what I noticed, and what I have a love-hate relationship about my birthday about, is that you get this burst of energy or burst of attention, which my mom and I are born on the same day, and she hates it. And I'm like, oh, give me all of the attention. I love the attention. Give me more attention, right? And then like the day after my birthday, I almost get depressed, because it stops immediately. Like, you snap your fingers and the attention's gone. And so it's like, I'm as high as I get, and then it just plummets. But it doesn't happen as much anymore, because I actually am giving myself attention on the regular, and it's a whole different experience now. So yes,
Yeah.
I do celebrate my birthday.
It's beautiful though. But I mean, that's another, that we could just play. We could play with that so much too. Just in the idea of like the loss of that attention. And then that can be, well, I heard this once and I don't know if we want to run with this after the break. The break's coming up. But I do want to mention it. I heard this in Kabbalah. I study a lot of different things, but I dip my toes into lots of different stuff. But in Kabbalah, somebody asked us once, what does the worst day of your life and the best day of your life have in common? They're both reactive. That you're so reactive in a good way, in a bad way, good, bad, whatever good and bad means. Like there's either pleasure and we're reacting to pleasure, or there's lack of pleasure and reacting to that. It's not neutral, you know, and that was an interesting thing. But birthdays are interesting. I don't know. I mean, it's good. So I know we're coming up. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they really are, especially with me and my mom. Like, obviously, we're both Leos, so it really has it has very little to do with the fact that I was born on August 4th. And it has way more to do with the fact that I was the only girl in the family, and I got a lot of attention growing up. And my mom got hardly any attention being number 5 of 7 kids.
Yeah.
And
so wild. And then we have, you know, so it's a same experience being born on a same day.
Mm-hmm.
And yet,
Yeah.
and maybe when we get back, I know that we have a couple of minutes left, but maybe when we get back from the break, we can talk about tying this into all of the traditional things that you've heard in terms of creating your reality. Like we create our reality with emotion. That's true. Like if you go team quantum, that's true. Like we create our reality with our vibrational frequency, you know, quantum physics, whatever the hell. But if you're making something mean a contracted thing versus an expansive thing, like your mom living in that reality of what her birthday means, well, if we're creating more of the same, then technically all of our thoughts and our experiences, this is why it's so worth it to work through your experiences, because you could be recreating the same crap.
Yeah.
We're going to be heading into a break in just a couple of seconds. And yeah, we'll talk more about that, I guess, after we get back.
I love our conversation. So we'll see you in a few.
But I'm Andee Scarantino.
And I'm Alysia Lyons, and we are filling in for Martine today. And we're having a really cool conversation about, the pen isn't a pen.
The pen isn't a pen. No, I mean, we're talking about the idea that everything is empty of meaning. And the meaning is projected from the mind. And so we've been really going a lot of cool places with this. We started with the pen. We talked about the Snickers. We talked about trust. We've talked about birthdays. And this is a really big, wild, expansive idea. And if you can boogie with it, it opens up so much for you, because you see that all of the experiences that are given to you are for you. They are you. They are of you. And it's this has been wild. And turning those experiences, a person living in constant inner chaos, you can explore that. Like Alysia had talked before the break, or before the break, about meaning making in a situation that she was choosing to make mean as someone didn't trust her, and then come to find that's actually not even the case. And now you're creating something else. And that's just what's so cool with that. So I love talking about this. I love going deep with it. It's fun.
Yeah, I love our conversations, Andee. And like we have a dozen podcast episodes for a podcast that we'll be releasing at some point in our life.
Yeah, that's my fault. Sorry, guys. Sorry. We recorded we recorded 12 episodes of a podcast, and they'll be out because I have them.
Yeah. And I get it, because if someone else hadn't created the intro and outro of my podcast, I wouldn't have a podcast either, because that's just the way that I am, where I'm like, I'm gonna unown it that I was, because it's if I didn't know how to do something, I would just stay in the land of I don't know.
Right.
And through, umpteen years of personal development, I've become somebody that now, if I am in the area of unknown, like Google exists. And I swear to you that it was never my thought for my problems to be like, oh, well, I'll just Google that. But if my son asked me a question that I didn't know the answer to, then I would say, that's a Google question, and we would Google it. It's the craziest thing to me.
Wild.
Right?
Yeah.
I had such a mental block around I don't know, that, if I don't know, then I just don't know, for me. But when it came to my son, it was like, I don't know, let's find out. Wild.
Yeah, that is something like deep that you can explore about. I personally, I don't know, brings up a lot for me, in that for many years of my life, I was insistent to come forward with knowing rather than with curiosity. And it was embracing I don't know that had helped really open up a lot for me, because I had such pressure to make sure that I know. When I come into a room, I got to know. I got to know. I got to know. Yeah. I find I used to tell a story that made me a good leader. And I think it was until probably 3 years ago that I started realizing, no, that's actually not the case. It just made me boneheaded, at least from my experience. And to be able to understand that my answers are just mine and everyone else's are theirs. And I don't have to know. I just have to be able to reflect. Or I don't have to, but it's more powerful to be able to reflect than to be able to force facts. But that's a whole other thing. That's my pen Snickers.
It's your pen Snickers.
Well, that's my pen Snickers.
I don't think I've never really dove into like where that came from, or anything behind it, but I do know that my child pushes me to do things that I wouldn't ever do for myself. And I remember one time, I don't remember the exact details of it, but he said something about me that was basically, he sees me as Superwoman. And and I thought, man, if I saw myself the way that my son sees me, I would be unstoppable. And I had a coach at the time who is a Facebook friend of mine, and she texted me and she said, that right there, really embrace that. And at the time, I didn't really dive into it, but I have a little bit since then that like, yeah, like, how does my son see me? And how do I start seeing myself that way? Because I am unstoppable unless I stop myself. So
I was putting some silence. I mean, like, if this was a conversation where we didn't have an audience, I think that would be a place where there would be some silence.
Yeah.
And when I think of kids and parents, I think ultimate life giver, like next to the great mother of earth, and I'm not trying to get all woo woo here, but like ultimate life giver. Yeah. And I was really exploring that, my own concept with that recently, with my uneasiness with flying. Because my mother shares that. My mother won't fly. I will. I do it semi-regularly. I'm not somebody that avoids it, but my mother will not. And how much of my subconscious says, well, my ultimate life giver will not get on an airplane. Like how much of that still lives with me? Like my ultimate, the person that was solely responsible for my survival for the first, I don't know how many years of my life, like that is the ideal. Like I will call my mother and ask her information about like taxes. And she'll say, Andrea, I don't know. Like call somebody that does taxes. Like, and I don't do it anymore. But the idea that like, she's the ultimate, like parents they live in that place with us, and a lot of our meaning making and a lot of our programming and a lot of our comes from our parents because of that role that they held for such a long time, because they were responsible for our safety. They were, and that's that ideal. And so your son sees you in that ideal, that beautiful, pristine ideal, which actually you are. It's just that you have different judgments based on different things, right? Like,
yeah. And I think I told you this story, but I'm going to tell you again. I was in a coaching program, and at the end of the program, I noticed that I was no longer afraid of spiders. And like, I've been afraid of spiders for as long as I can remember and beyond, because I don't actually remember the story of being 3 years old and my mom was taking 18 units in college. She was working 30 hours a week. She was a single mom of 3 kids. Her eye was twitching and she was stuttering. And I wouldn't let her go to bed until she vacuumed the Fido, air quotes, that's what I called spiders, from the room. And I realized I wasn't afraid of spiders by having a spider in the shower with me, chilling on the wall. And I'm like, oh, look at that spider. How is it staying there? How is it, like, there's water hitting it. I see it like doing, twitching. And how is it not going down the drain? How much water would it take for it to go down the drain? And so I sprayed the water on the spider, and it crinkled up, like all its legs went up, and it still stayed for like 30 seconds, and then it washed down the drain. It was the most interesting thing I'd ever seen a spider do, because I never watched a spider before. And so I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, I don't know what the purpose of me not being afraid of spiders anymore. It's not like that was really inhibiting my life. I could just say, honey, kill the spider, and he'd kill the spider, and I was good. Like, everything was fine. Like, it wasn't something that really was detrimental to my existence. And that friend said, yeah, it proved to you that you can overcome any fear. And I was like, oh, my brain exploded with like all this potential, right? And then I was talking to another friend, telling her that story, and she said, you realize that you're a spider, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, spiders are life weavers, and you are a life weaver. Because I've been on this podcast before, but if you've never seen me, I've been a surrogate 5 times. And so I've birthed 6 children. And no, I've been a surrogate 4 times. I've birthed 6 children, 1, plus my own son. And and I said, so I've been afraid of myself my whole life. And I started crying. And I was like, damn, like I can feel the tears now. And like, that resonates so true. Like, I would not journal. I've been a writer since I could put sentences together. And I took a writing course, and the teacher made us do poetry. And I even hold on to it, like, she made us do poetry, because I freaking hated poetry so much because it produced all these emotions in me that I didn't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've been talking for a long time.
No, I think it's beautiful. And it's a beautiful way. It's a beautiful way for us to really start to really wrap this up in that was for you. And another human wouldn't even see, like, or wouldn't even question. And I think it's powerful for us to just get to a place of asking, why would anyone question? Oh, I'm afraid of a spider. That's no big deal. I'll have my partner kill it. Oh, I'm afraid of a plane. It's no big deal. I'm just going to get on it anyway. And, you know, like, but why? Why? And that's really the beauty of the work that we do, is just to be able to uncover a lot of that and to see that there is no meaning in a spider. We're projecting that meaning. How beautiful is the projection? So we're getting the signal that we got 2 minutes. So I just want to say thank you, Alysia, for having me. Yeah. Thank you, Martine, for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I think that both Andee and I provide a lot of value in our own podcasts, which my podcast is called Imperfect Momming, Better Parenting Through Self-Healing, because I realized that the better parent that I became, the better person I became, made me a better parent. And so I always have guests, and we have amazing conversations like this one. So and you can find me at AlysiaLyons.com, ALYSIALYONS.com. Andee has a much more colorful website.
Well, yeah. So yes, you can find me at getthefuckoff.com. It's not a porn site. It was a very intelligent joke that a lot of European cybersecurity systems don't realize. But it is a personal development site. You can also type in AndeeScarantino.com, but it's just going to redirect you to Get the Fuck Off. And I have the Get the Fuck Off podcast, Fuck with an Asterisk, on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. And you can also find me at viewfromtheroof.substack.com. So yeah, thank you, Alysia. Thank you, Martine. This has been really awesome.
Thank you, listeners, for all of listening to all of the fucks that just happened in 11 seconds.
It's been beautiful to be here today on Transformation Talk Radio.
And there'll be another episode next time. I don't know if she's weekly or bi-weekly now, but Martine will be back then.
Thank you for tuning in to Transformation with Martine. Real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. Listen or watch live every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. As Martine and her guests have deep, meaningful conversations, sharing empowering stories. Step into your passions and lead with your heart. If you are ready to accept and love you for you, visit martineemmons.com and start allowing transformation to happen today.